Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, the Zevachim Daf Kuf Tes Zayin. We are going to begin on Kuf Tes Vav Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. We've been learning what is the din when it comes to before the Mishkan was constructed and afterwards. So we said that before there was the firstborns that were going to be receiving the responsibility of the avoda. However, after the Mishkan was constructed, or maybe after Har Sinai, then it was given over to the Kohanim. Omer Mar Hakok Sherin L'Hakriv. So we said that a person was able to be makriv any type of animal. It doesn't make any difference. This is Ad Shlo Hukam Mishkan. Before the Mishkan was constructed, Bamos were mutter, and the avoda, as we said, is by the Bechor. And you're allowed to bring not only a zachar, but also nekeva. Doesn't matter if it's a male or female animal. It could be any type of an animal. It can be a non-kosher animal. But it could even be a balmut. So how kok sherim hakrim and olin. So how do we know this? So Amar Rav Huna, the pasuk says, "V'yiven Noach mizbeach laHashem." So Noach built the mizbeach after he left the teva, after the mabul. V'yikach mikol behemot tahira, and he took from all the kosher animals. Mikol oivatar. So behema kamashmaoi. Chaya b'chalal behema. And then we continue on Kuf Tes Zayin Manav. Zachar v'nekevis tamimim bali mumin diamar tomus zachrus. Tomus v'zachrus bebehema v'intomus v'zachrus ba'ovos. That the whole isser of even afterwards being makar of an oif is only if it has a mechusar aver, but if it has a bal mum, it's not a problem. It's only lafuki mechusar aver deloy. The only thing that cannot have been brought on even on the mizbeach before the Mishkan was constructed, and also in the times of Noach, was only if it was mechusar aver. Take only the living animals, the healthy animals. So Amr Torah Hava Behema Shechayin, Rashi Yavarim Shalah. Take animals in which all their limbs are alive. I have a Delmo Mute Treifa, maybe just coming to exclude a Treifa animal that's going to die. No, Hahu Malachi Zeranavka. That already says that it has to give birth. It has to be able to reproduce. That's the purpose. Any animal that was in the table, we need them to procreate. So well, maybe an animal is dying, but it could still have the capacity of giving, of procreating. So it has to be something comparable to Noach. And Noach was not a treifa, so obviously it has to be an animal that's not a treifa, and therefore the pasuk is coming to exclude a mechusar aver. V'dilma gufa treifa havoy. No tomim ksibe. He was a tomim. V'dilma tomim b'derachim. Sadik ksibe. V'dilma tomim b'derachim v'sadik b'masav. Zisach adaitach the Noach gufa treifa havoy. You think Noach was a treifa? Mi karmel Noach de kavasech ayol. Shlomim lo tile. I only want you to bring treifa animals. Why would he tell them only bring treifa animals, even if he was a treifa? So it can't be that was the situation. He couldn't have been a treifa. And on this, Taisus asks a more basic question. He lived 300 years after the Mahabul, so he obviously wasn't dying. So Taisus gives two answers. The Sugin Kamandi Aimer Treifa Chaya. Maybe a Treifa could live. He just wasn't as strong and healthy as he was. Alternatively, the Rabbeinu Tam says the distinction between a treifa of a person and of an animal. Because a person has mazel, so you could still be a treifa, but because of mazel, maybe you're not going to die. He didn't die. Okay. Anyway, ma'acher the nafkalan mitach lachiyos zera lovely. So why does it need to tell us that? So ma'adatim mitach with savasa ba'alma. It's just stama command. I feel zakin, I feel sris kamashmuan, and therefore you could even bring other animals which are extremely old or those have been castrated. We don't want those because again it has to be able to procreate. Tahirin avol tmein. However, on a bama, even the time where Hutter Obama is before the Mishkan was constructed, you could not bring a non-kosher animal. So mi havi tamein v'tahirin shaita. This was before Matan Torah, before the Mishkan was constructed. So there was no such thing as a kosher animal, a non-kosher animal. Those mitzvahs were given later on. What it means is not a non-kosher animal. It means an animal that no sin was committed with it. That's what it's referring to. So minah havi yadai. So how would you be able to distinguish? They would put it in front of the teva. Kol shahad teva koil tasai biyadu shutar. If the teva was able to grab onto it, it took it, then you knew it was fine. And a teva kol tasai biyadu shehin tamein. So basically, the teva only brought in animals that no aver was done with it. That they came by themselves. So Rashi Kos and Shabo Elateva Malehin Bo Uvehain Hikir. Within them they recognize Oisim Shabo Shiva Shiva Yada Shin Tahir. It was obvious the fact that there were 7. It must be that they were tahar, and those that came 2 must have been the ones which were tamei. Omer Mar Vakol Karbo Oilos Oilos in Shlomim Loi. They were rakrib Oilos but not Shlomim. I have Hoksiv Yisbachus. Zevachim Shlomim Hashem Parim. It says clearly that this was at Sinai, which is before the Hakamas HaMishkan, and nonetheless it says that there were Shlomim that were allowed to be brought on this bama. El Ema Hakol Karbo Oilois. Everyone could bring Karbonos, even Shlomim. And maybe these are maybe parentheses or brackets. B'shlomim, v'osanya avol shlomim lo ki'im oilus. Oilus in shlomim loy. Command oimer, that's according to the opinion, will cover shlomim b'nei noyach. So again, it's a machlokas whether or not the b'nei noyach were makar shlomim. Did Mar Belezer, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chani, and Echad oimer cover shlomim b'nei noyach v'chad oimer lo cover. So it's a machlokas. So my time of them on oimer cover shlomim b'nei noyach. So how do I understand the opinion that they taka were? The pasuk says, "V'hevel hevi gamhu mibachidis Sinai michal behen." It says that Hevel, which was Adam and Chava's son, when he was makriv a nice gift to Hashem, he brought from these animals. He brought from his choicest sheep, and from the most delicate and fattiest ones. So Eidavar shechalbu karv l'gam mizbeach. What is a matter that only its fats are be makrim on the mizbeach, but not the entirety? That's a shlomim. So we see that Hevel taka brought a carbon shlomim. So my time when I'm kavu dechsiv, the pasuk says oilit safoin uvay timoin tisnaer uma shemaseh b'safoin. Shake off this in which their actions were in the north. V'taba Uma, and come to Mashiach, a nation Shemaseh b'Safon Uvidaram. That's something which is brought in the north and in the south. What does that mean? So we know, first of all, when it comes to what's brought in the north, those are only Kadshim, like an Oyla. However, in the times of Mashiach, it'll be Yisrael will be Makriv Oilos and Shlomim, Kadoshim Kalim don't have to be brought in the north, it can be in the south. So therefore, it's coming to say that we're not makriv them yet, but they will be makriv. Okay. Fine. Umar Nami Oksiv Michal Vehen, which is mashma that Hevel did bring a Shlomim. It means Mishminehem did who? It just means the choicest Ola. Doesn't mean that he brought a Shlomim. It just means the choicest, best Ola. Umar Nami Haksiv Oide Safain, right? So Hahu, which is mashma, was only then where they makriv karbanos like an oil, but not shlomim. Hahu bekimut golius to Haksiv. Says Rashi, Falkam Oiri Ruach Safainis, awaken the northern wind. Uvoya Ruach Doraimis, Hakabis Golias and Mufuzarais Hamufuzarais Bahem. It just means that we're spread out all over. That Moshe was speaking to Paro, and he says that he wants the Eden should be freed. We bring Zevachim, right, which is Mashma and the Havamina. We think that Zevachim is referring to Shlomim. So apparently, and obviously we know, obviously this was before Matan Torah. So how do we understand this? So Zevachim lachila, but oilos lahakrava. Zevachim were for eating, and oilos was to makriv. So he wasn't actually going to be makriv a shlomim. I've said yikach Yisro chaysim oisha oisha was Zevachim, which sounds like, and again this was before Matan Torah. Yisro came, Parshas Yisro, when he came was right before when we read Matan Torah. No, hanilach Matan Torah hudichsev. Hanilach Yisro Matan Torah haya elaman diyemer Yisro kaidam Matan Torah haya. It's actually machlokas, because if he came before, so it sounds like Shulman were brought before. Dietmar b'nei Rav Chia v'Rav Yosef ben Levi. Chad omer Yisro kaidam Matan Torah haya. Chad omer Yisro ach Matan Torah haya. So mandim Yisro kaidam Matan Torah haya. Ksaver Shlomi hikru b'nei Noach. It sounds like he holds taka that Shlomim were brought by the b'nei Noach, which I thought we said it's not true. So again, it's a machlokas tanoim kitanoi. It says v'yishma Yisro kain midyan. The very beginning name of the Parshas Yisro is it's real v'yishma Yisro. He heard and he came to Moshe, his son-in-law. So there's a famous Rashi over there brought from here. Mashmu shamu v'nis gayer. And I don't think Rashi says that word, but why did he come? So Yeshua Omer Milchamas Amalek Shama. He heard about the war of Amalek. Shahari Ksiv, but Sido V'Yachale Yeshua Amalek Ves Amalek V'Charev. Right before Parshas Yisro, we find that it talks about Milchamas Amalek. That the maftir of the previous parsha before Yisro, Mishpatim, it talks about Amalek. Rabbi Lezer Hamadoi Omer Matan Torah Shama. Actually, he came after Matan Torah, and once he heard about Matan Torah, then he came. Ova Shikishen Nitna Torah Yisrael Hayakoyel Hayach Masevel Aviad Seifai. That everyone was able to hear the great sounds of the of the Kabbalah Torah. It was not just unique just to Klal Yisrael. It was something that the whole world knew about it. V'chol Malchi Oivdi Kachavim. They were basically all like trembling in their own sanctuaries. Yomer Shiru, and they said Shir Shenemar Uvehechalu Kulo Oimer Kavod, that they all acknowledged at Matan Torah. All the kings were Mechaber Kodesh Baruch Hu at that time. Niskabtsu Kulam Eitzel Bilam Rasha. So they went to Bilam V'Yarmelo Makol HaMoyin. What is this great sound? Asher Shemanu Shema Mabul Bol Oilam. Maybe something terrible is happening. So Bilam said, no, Hashem will Mabul Yoshav. That's what we said. Hashem will Mabul Yoshav V'Yeshev Melech Oilam. Right? That's what we say right here. The Mabul has not happened. V'Yeshev Hashem Melech Oilam. That Hashem is the king of the world. Kvar Nishma Kodesh Baruch Hashem maybe Mabul Oilam. There will not be a flood. Amru Lo Mabul Shel Mayim Enu Maybe. So maybe you're right. Maybe there won't be a flood of water. Of a Mabul Shel Eish maybe. Maybe there'll be a fire, a flood, a Mabul. Clearly the word Mabul doesn't mean flood, right? Because a Mabul just means like a destruction. That's really what it means, a catastrophic destruction. Because it says here, Mabul Shel Mayim Enu Maybe, of a Mabul Shel Eish maybe, right? Right? So the word Mabul, right? Clearly the word Mabul does not mean flood, right? Based on it's not the right language. So Shnemer V'Kini Be'esh Hashem Nishmat. So Amalahem Kfar Nishma Sheinu Mashchis Kol Basar. He said, don't worry, the world's not going to get destroyed even by fire. Umakol Hamoin Hazeh Shisham. What is this great sound? Amalahem Chem Datayva Yeshlo Bebeis Ganazov. There's this great thing which was in Hashem's treasure house. Shahais Genuza Etzloi. It was hidden for tough Kuf Ayin Dalid Daidais for 974 generations. Kaidim Shenibra Oilam, before the world was created. Ubikish Litna Levanav Shenemar Hashem Oiza Moyitain. Miad Pisku Kum Yermer Hashem Yivarechas Amoy Vashalim. Rabbi Lezer Omer So the 974 corresponds to Moshe was generation 26, which is 1,000 full generations. Rabbi Lezer Omer Kriyas Yamsuf Shama. He actually heard about Kriyas Yamsuf. Move on. So actually the Rashi in Chumash says it was Molech and Kriyas Yamsuf. Doesn't mention Har Sinai because it wouldn't stem with the simple reading of the Psukim. However, again, it's possible he came after Mount Torah. This is the whole point. Even in the time of Rachav, when she hid those two spies, she also heard what happened. They dried up the Yamsuf. That there's no more spirit. That it did not stand up the ruach by a person. So what's the difference? As we continue with Beis, it's so Rashi, the Gemara says, Diafilu akshuye nami lu okshu. It says Rashi, Aver l'shtamish lu okshu. It means that they even their own Aver could not function. Umena yada, and how did Rachav know all this? Tiamer mar enoch hakol sarv nagish lo ba al Rachav azayna. That Rachav was intimate with basically everyone. Okay, so Amr Bas Yud Shanim Shahaisa 10 years Kishiyotzi Yisum Mitzrayim, that they left Mitzrayim, Vizonsa Kol Mem Shana, and she was Mazana for 40 years. Shah Yisrael B'Midbar Acher Nun Shana Nisgaira. After 50 years, she converted. Amr Yehi Mocholi B'Sachar Chevel Chaloin Upishtim. Now you should be forgiven with the reward of the rope, the window, and the flax. Says Rashi, B'Mechilta Tanya Hachi Amr Abanishal B'Gimel Devarim Chatasi. 3 things I've sinned. B'Gimel Yimchoil. I should be forgiven these 3 things. Shahari Menafin Oil and Aleha B'Chavolim Derech HaChalon V'Yordim. Because normally a man would come into my hotel, and after he was intimate, I would bring him down with a rope, so that no one would see he was there. And that's what I did with these spies. Bigam Timatem Bipishte Eitz. I used to hide them so people wouldn't know that they were there. So, goof for the very same thing that Rachav Hazayna used for sin, she used it for the good. And therefore, that's an ultimate level of tshuva. That to be able to take the very thing that you have and to be able to elevate it, that in itself is the highest level of tshuva. Nowadays, just in this case it means those who are now the Jewish faith, are allowed to bring karbanos. The whole prohibition is dafka for Yid, because they could bring it in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Mishkan. But a non-Jew who wants to bring a sacrifice, he's able to do it even in his own place. Somebody can build their own bama. You're not allowed to assist them during the time of an Isser Bamos. For example, Bizman Hazeh. Okay. And you can't do their shlichus. To guide them, to kind of like tell them, oh, this you should do it this way, that way, that is allowed. But you can't physically assist them. The Ifra Hormiz, Ime the Shvar Malka, that we find that he assisted the mother, the Shvar Malka, Shadra Karbana Lorava. They sent Karbanos, Shalchale Asku Nihili Lashem Shemayim, and wanted to be able to bring Karbanos for the sake of heaven. So Melhu, Rav Safa, Rav Acha Barhuna, Zilu V'Dibru, Trey Oilime Goloi. They should take 2 non-Jewish lads, and and you should go to a place where the sea covered up to the sirtoin. V'shaklu tzivi charati, and you should take new pieces of wood. V'yafiku norim amoyrachanta, and you should take the fire from like new steel. V'askua nihili l'shem shemayim. Come on, Kabelezer ben Shmuel, the son of Kabelezer ben Shmuel, Omer, Ma mizbeach shel yishtamish by hedyet, af eitzim shel yishtamish behen hedyet. The reason why I say you have to use new wood is because it shouldn't have been used by anyone else. V'ha ma'idu Kabelezer ben Shmuel babama. The son Yikosav Echadam, the pasuk says V'yitin David l'Arnon, that David gave to Arnon b'makom shakli zahav mishkol sheish meyas gomer 600. V'ksiv vayikin David as hagaydin v'as habakar b'keser shkolm chamishim. Then it says only 50. Haketzad. So goyim mikol sheva v'sheva chamishim shehein shish sheish meyas. So he actually had each of the shvatim make their own contributions of 50 each times 12 equals 600. Rabbi Omer Mishum Abba Yosef ben Destoy Bakar ve'etzim u'makam mizbech benun banoi v'chol habayis kula b'sheish meyos. So he said that the bakar and the eitzim and the makam mizbech was 50, and the entire bias was 600. Okay, that's another answer. That's how much he paid for this makam hamikdash. Rabbi Lezer ben Shmuel Omer Bakar ve'etzim u'makam mizbech benun. That was 50. The whole by school b'sheish meyas. T'chsiv yimar arvoina el David yikach, take it v'yal adayni hamelach atoy beinav. Go what's good in your eyes. Ra habakar l'oila v'hamorgim the whole habakar l'eitzim. And he used the tools for the wood. It doesn't mean that it was old, but it was actually never used. My morigim. What does that mean? Mordigim amar ua. It means matashel turval. My matashel turval samarbaya iza de karkasa, de daishi dishoy. It's some type of pointy peg that was used to thresh with. Rabbi Mikra hini shematicha lim regarding this item. Charetz chadash. It was sharp and new. Balpafiois, the goymer had these edges. Makuli ravel beret v'rami lekroy adadi. So he said there's a contradiction in psukim. Ksiv yitin David l'Arnon 600. V'ksiv yitin David the goymer 50. So haketzad. So goymer mikol shevet v'sheva chamishim shehin sheish meyos. Again, as we said before, he collected 50 per shevet. Yikati kashan adadi hasam kasev hachazav. One says silver and gold. El hachagamar. Goymer kasev b'mishkol sheish meyos zahav. Okay. All right. We're going to continue, but just not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's look at a couple more questions. Question 4. Matai hufreshu hakohanim la'avoida tachas b'chayris. Actually, we saw this yesterday. That's either from the time of the Hukam Mishkan or from the time of Har Sinai. Question 5. Is a carbon hikri of Hevel? So Hevel was either makriv an oila or possibly a shlomim, according to the Mandiyama, that B'nai Noach were makriv shlomim before Matan Torah. Question 6. Tanya Rashbi Oimer B'Shilo Hayo Elo Shnei Machanois Bolvad. Okay, we didn't get to that yet. TA 6. Ha'im mutter lilmoid l'sayla la'akom lishchit bibama. So can you help them? And that we saw, which is l'lamed mutter l'sayla also. You can teach them what to do, but you can't actually support them. That much we don't allow. Fine. Let's see. Kuf test involving bays. Why didn't I mark that down before? Ha'im motulum l'sayis. So this is the same question. Kuf test zayin bays. Lumamoter avo saye aser. I got that right. That's TB9. Beautiful. And let's keep on moving. Okay. So Kodshim Kalim Necholim B'chol Machne Yisrael. So Kadoshim Kalim were able to eat not just Machne Shechina, Machne Levi, and the Machne Yisrael. That's where the Kadoshim Kalim were eaten, which was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, in the whole city of the whole old city. So Kadoshim Kalim, again, that's the din. So Amar Rav Huna B'chol Makom Yisrael, only in the Makom Yisrael, Avol Machna Lo Havoy. It just means that they were in those places, but it wasn't a Machna. Says Rashi, She'afil B'shas Siluk Masois Ein Solon. It means even when they were traveling, where there wasn't actually a Machna, you were still allowed to eat it. El Molichin Imoy, travel with them. So when you encamp, then you eat in the Machna. However, while you're traveling, you could still eat Kadashim Kalim. It wasn't restrictive in that way, which is a big chiddush. They were saying there was no machnos. Vaha Tanya kashem shem machne b'midbar kach machne Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim lahar bayis machne Yisrael. From in Yerushalayim to the har bayis to the Temple Mount, that was machne Yisrael. Mahar bayis ashar niknor was machne Levia. Mekan ve'elch machne Shechina. When you went inside the machne, when you went inside of the Shar Niknor, from that point you're already in the Machne Shechina. Ve'en hein kaloim shemibidbar. It's basically the same thing. So basically we're saying that, well, again, the Machne Shechina was the Kilayim, so you couldn't eat Kadashim outside of the Kilayim, Chutz min Kilayim. However, which is mashma that you couldn't eat Kadashim Kalim on the fly. Ela ema kol b'chol macham Machne Yisrael. Right? That's how you're supposed to read it. So pshita mahadatema ifsul b'yaitzi. You would think maybe there's an Isser B'yaitzi by Kachim Kalim while they were traveling. Kamashim Be'ema Hakanam Esamar Kra, V'nasa Oyim Moyed, Alphavisha Nasa O Moyed, who. So it was still considered to be an Oyim Moyed, even though they were traveling. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Yoichai Yoimer, Oida Cheres Haisu, is actually a fourth Machna, fourth camp. The Chil Ezros Nashim He. And it was considered like the enclosure of the Ezros Nashim. V'lo Ha'yo'in Aleha, and a person would not be punished, says Rashi, El Hanichnas La Batuma. If you entered into the Ezros Nashim in that area, then you would not be chayiv for entering in Batuma. Uvishila, however, in Shiloh, Lo Hayu Ella Shnei Machanos Bolvad. There was only two. So Haiminayu Lo Havi. So out of the Machna Levia, Shechina and Yisrael, which one was not by Machna? Was not by Shiloh. So Maramba Mistaber de Machla via Havoy. Probably we're talking about there was Machna Levia and Machna. Obviously there was Machna Shechina. That's not the question. The question is, was there Machna Levia or Machna Yisrael? So apparently there was Machna Levia, but probably not Machna Yisrael. That went straight from Machna Yisrael to Machna Shechina. There was no Machna Levia. As we continue to Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Nimsa Zovin, the Tami Mesim, when it comes to someone who's a Zav or someone who's Tami Mes, Mishtalchen Chutz L'Machna Achas, they would be removed out of one Machna. Vatar Omer Velusa Tamas Machnehem, they're not allowed to, they have to leave both Machnas, which means out of Machna Levia as well. Tain Machna Lezeh, Machna Lezeh. So therefore it must be that there was a Machna Levia. So Amrule Rava Elam my Machne Yisrael Havoy. So when tell me there was no Machne Yisrael, Nimsu Zelvin Mitzrayin, Mishtalchin L'Makam Echad, Batar Omer Badad Yeshev Shal Yoshev Tamei Achar Yimoi. If there's no Machne Yisrael, so what does it mean? We know that they have to leave Machne Yisrael, right? So they have to sit by themselves. Really, in the time of Shiloh, there was all three. It doesn't mean that there was not all three, but it means regarding the din of koilet. What does that mean, koilet? Says Rashi, that when you left Levia, shuv ein shom kava machna. There was no other, it wasn't set. Varihu kasada ba'alma, had the same status like a field. Umutarin mitzrayim leishiv sham. And some of the Srats were able to sit there, and that was fine. They were able to go out there. That's what we were saying, at least in the Havamina. So we're saying Elakul Havoy, they actually were all there, only with Indian Kalita is the difference. The Nistalka, Tairas, Machnalevia, it's removed from Machnalevia, Malikloit as a Haroiging Shaygeg. Someone who kills B'Shaygeg, so do we say that it like protects them in that area? So we say that the protection was only for the Shtei Machnos. B'Chladim and Midbar Havoy Kalata Machnalevia. Is that mashma in the time of the Midbar, the Machnalevia did protect? In Vatanya V'Sabdacha Makam B'Chayecha Makoim Mikoimcha Sheyonu Shama Malamed Shemigal B'Midbar. They actually did. There was a din galus, even though there's no cities of refuge in the Midbar. There was still such a din. Lahechin Goyim. Where did they go? So Machnalevia. So Machnalevia was their location where they were safe in the Midbar. Mekan Amru Ben Levi Shaharig. Ben Levi who killed Goyla Miplach Laplach. So what is he supposed to do? He can't go he has to go somewhere else. So he can go from one district within Machnalevia. Now, V'im go Laplach Laplacho Polcho Kolto. If he stays in the zone, it'll still help him. So Mikra Amravach Ravika Kibiir Miklato Yashav Ir Shaklatoloso Kfar, a place that he was cut from before. Nonetheless, it will still protect him. However, in the time of Shiloh, there was not that same level of protection. Okay, we'll definitely stop there. Now let's look at question 6. Tanya Rashbi Omer B'Shiloh Hayu El Shtei Machanais. So what is that referring to? So the Machanavia was bottled from protecting someone who killed B'Shoigeg when it came to in the time of Shiloh. Okay. Question TA7 we did not do yet. Question TB10 we did. Tanya b'Shiloh hayu el shtei machnos afuki mai. Madua ein leimer kipshutoi shel hayu machno levia o machno Yisrael lishluach tameim. Okay, so let's see what I wrote. This is Kuf Yud Zayin but Aleph. So maskana ein machno levia le'inyan ir hamiklat. But tameim yotzim rak mamachne Shechina v'lo mamachno levia o Yisrael. Okay, I was pretty much on the right track there. Adkan.